What if I told you that Canada just cut illegal border crossings by 89% in just 6 months, and that a single 127-page document could reshape the entire US-Canada relationship? Today, we're not just covering the news. We're diving deep into the strategies, the politics, and the real-world impact of the most dramatic migration policy shifts we've seen in decades. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why these changes matter, who they affect, and what they mean for the future of North American immigration. This isn't just policy talk. This is about millions of lives and the future of two nations. Welcome back to Border Watch Weekly, where we decode the immigration policies that shape our world. Here in InfoExpress, and for those of you joining us for the first time, this section is dedicated to breaking down complex immigration developments in plain English. We don't just report the news, we analyze what it means for real people. This week has been absolutely unprecedented. We've seen policy announcements, statistical revelations, and diplomatic moves that are fundamentally changing how the US and Canada approach migration. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's unpack what could be the most significant week in US-Canada immigration relations this year. Let's start with the number that's making headlines: 89%. That's the reduction in illegal border crossings from the US into Canada by foreign nationals between June and December of last year. But here's what the headlines aren't telling you. This isn't just about building bigger walls or hiring more guards. This is about intelligent policy implementation. Canada simultaneously increased refusals from high-risk countries by 61% and saw asylum claims by Canadian visa holders drop by 18%. What does this tell us? Canada isn't just playing defense, they're completely restructuring their approach to immigration screening. Think about it this way. If you're a legitimate refugee or immigrant, these changes actually make the system more predictable and fair. If you're trying to game the system, you're facing a much more sophisticated detection network. Canada has essentially created a smarter filter, not just a bigger wall. But here's the really interesting part. This dramatic reduction happened without major international incidents or diplomatic tensions. That's the mark of effective policy implementation, not just tough rhetoric. Now let's talk about the Strong Borders Act, 127 pages that could redefine US-Canada relations for the next decade. Introduced on June 3rd by Minister of Public Safety Gary Ananda Sangari, this isn't just Canadian legislation. It's a diplomatic response to American concerns. Here's the backstory. President Trump raised specific concerns about cross-border fentanyl trafficking. Instead of getting defensive or dismissive, Canada responded with comprehensive legislation. This bill addresses border management, security protocols, and cooperation mechanisms between the two countries. What makes this fascinating from a policy perspective is that Canada is essentially saying, "We hear your concerns and we're taking action." This proactive approach could set a new standard for how neighboring countries address shared challenges. The 127 pages aren't just legal text. They represent months of analysis, consultation, and strategic planning. This bill covers everything from technology integration at border crossings to information sharing protocols between US and Canadian law enforcement. For anyone studying international relations, this is a textbook example of how to address bilateral concerns through domestic policy. Canada is strengthening its own border security while simultaneously addressing American concerns about shared vulnerabilities. Let's dive into the numbers that will affect millions of people over the next 3 years. Canada's permanent resident admissions are following a strategic decline: 395,000 in 2025, 380,000 in 2026, and 365,000 in 2027. But before you think this is just about reducing immigration, let me show you the strategy behind these numbers. Over 40% of permanent residents in 2025 will be people already living in Canada as temporary residents. This isn't just about managing numbers. It's about prioritizing integration and community connection. Think about what this means. Canada is choosing to fast-track people who are already contributing to Canadian society, who have jobs, who have established community ties. This approach addresses one of the biggest challenges in immigration policy: the integration gap. When someone has already been living and working in a country, the transition to permanent residence is smoother for everyone involved: the individual, the community, and the economy. But here's where it gets really interesting. While overall numbers are decreasing, the quality of integration is likely to increase. This could actually result in better long-term outcomes for both immigrants and Canadian communities. Compare this to the traditional approach of processing applications from people who have never lived in the country. Canada is essentially saying, we want to invest in people who have already chosen to invest in us. It's a relationship-based approach to immigration planning. While Canada is tightening some pathways, they're opening others. And the strategy behind this is fascinating. They're launching a permanent immigration program in 2025 based on their successful Economic Mobility Pathways pilot. This program specifically targets skilled refugees and displaced persons, connecting them directly with Canadian employers. This is revolutionary thinking. Instead of treating refugee status and economic immigration as separate streams, Canada is recognizing that many displaced persons have valuable skills that Canadian employers need. It's a win-win approach that addresses both humanitarian obligations and economic needs. Meanwhile, the U.S. implemented new travel limits starting June 9th, though Canadian passport holders aren't affected. This creates an interesting dynamic where Canada is selectively opening doors while the U.S. is implementing new restrictions. What's the strategic implication here? Canada is positioning itself as the more welcoming option for skilled immigrants, while the U.S. is focusing on security concerns. This could lead to a significant shift in where top international talent chooses to relocate. For Canadian employers, this new pathway could be a game changer. Instead of competing for limited local talent, they'll have access to a pool of skilled professionals who are already motivated to relocate and integrate. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. These aren't just isolated policy changes. They're part of a broader shift in how North America approaches migration in the 21st century. Canada's approach represents what we might call strategic compassion, maintaining humanitarian commitments while prioritizing economic integration and security. The U.S. approach, with its recent restrictions, suggests a focus on security and control. This divergence could have profound implications. If Canada's approach proves successful, and the 89% reduction in illegal crossings suggests it might be, it could influence immigration policy far beyond North America. We're potentially witnessing the emergence of a new model for immigration management, one that combines humanitarian obligations, economic needs, security concerns, and diplomatic considerations into a coherent strategy. The real test will be whether this approach can be sustained over time and whether it delivers the promised benefits for all stakeholders: immigrants, communities, employers, and governments. Now, I want to hear from you, and I mean really hear from you. This isn't just about likes and comments. This is about building a community of people who understand that immigration policy affects all of us. First, drop a comment and tell us, which of these stories surprised you most? Are you personally affected by these changes? Are you an employer dealing with labor shortages? Are you someone considering immigration to Canada or the US? Your perspective matters, and I read every single comment. Second, if you're planning to immigrate or you know someone who is, these policy changes could dramatically impact your timeline and strategy. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell because immigration policy moves fast, and staying informed could literally change your life. Third, share this video with anyone who needs to understand what's happening with US-Canada immigration. Whether they're policy professionals, potential immigrants, or just curious citizens, this information is too important to keep to yourself. And finally, if you found this deep dive valuable, give this video a thumbs up. It tells YouTube that complex policy analysis matters, and it helps us reach more people who need this information. Let me leave you with this. What we're witnessing isn't just policy change, it's policy evolution. Canada has demonstrated that it's possible to be both secure and welcoming, both strategic and humanitarian. The 89% reduction in illegal crossings isn't just a statistic, it's proof that smart policy can deliver real results. For anyone watching US-Canada relations, this week proves that immigration isn't just about numbers on a page. It's about diplomacy, economics, security, and human dignity all rolled into one complex challenge. The Strong Borders Act, the strategic immigration planning, the new pathways for skilled refugees, these aren't just policy announcements. They're building blocks for a new approach to 21st century immigration management. As we move forward, The question isn't whether these policies will have an impact. They already are. The question is whether other countries will learn from Canada's approach, and whether the US and Canada can maintain their collaborative relationship while pursuing different strategies. That's your comprehensive US-Canada migration update for this week, here in Info Express with Border Watch Weekly. Next week, we'll be diving into the economic impacts of these policy changes, and trust me, the numbers are going to surprise you. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, in immigration policy, the details matter, but the human impact matters more.